The next evening, Joe sat in the common room of his apartment. Barely contained, he sat on the edge of a chair, his left leg bouncing. No matter how many times Lon nudged him about it, it just started back up. He wondered how she could be so calm about the whole thing. But she wasn't the only one acting strangely. Joe's mom had taken the day off and spent a good deal of time with food, which wasn't too odd, but at one point, she disappeared into his parents' bathroom and reappeared sometime later, her hair done and wearing a dress he had only seen in a photo of his parents when they were younger. It was a bit tight in some places, a fact that got his younger brother Benny banished to his room when he pointed that out. A bit later, his father had brought Benny to an older neighbor for the evening, as things that were to be discussed without his unique brand of comedy or disruption. Joe was as concerned as his parents, who were not keen on his running off quite literally to the far reaches of the solar system, or beyond, actually, which, when he pointed it out to his mother that they'd actually be leaving the solar system, did not help his case. It seems the promise of adventure, wealth, and fame was insufficient for their children to risk a minor inconvenience like an early death. He argued until his father finally said that any further discussion and they would summarily rule against the trip. This had the effect of Joe immediately returning to his room, throwing himself on his bed and screaming into his pillow. After that, he showered and got dressed, twice, as the first time his parents disapproved of his choice of clothes. It seems that serious business required wearing your least comfortable clothes. His one hope was that while his parents hadn't agreed yet, they hadn't actually said no either. His fervent hope that they could be persuaded was the only thing allowing him to retain a degree of control. Lon seemed to have fared slightly better. At least she seemed less worried. Her father was with her, and he had brought the attorney that represented his company along to review the contracts. She had talked briefly with Joe, and then spent a lot of time with his mom, which made his somewhat nervous for reasons he did not fully understand. She seemed to enjoy having a reason to wear the smart little dress, although she took her shoes off almost as soon as she came in the door. The usual footwear in space was a soft, slipper-like thing with a grippy rubber sole that helped you keep your footing in low G, as comfortable as they were practical. Dress shoes, it seemed, were universally uncomfortable. Joe tried to listen to the several conversations in the room. He frequently checked the time on every timepiece in the room and annoyed Lon by repeatedly asking her what time it was. All this was made worse because Captain James Oliver, of the Sundancer, was late. The appointed time came, passed, people talked, they sampled food, and pretended they were just as content to sit and chat as if nothing important was going to happen. 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes rolled by. Finally, at 18:27 station time, the speaker by the door announced, "Captain Oliver, apologies for being late." Joe knew the exact time because he was checking it again when the captain arrived. He bounded to the door in an impressive display of low-gravity athletics and had it open before the captain had finished speaking. Hello?" the captain said into the awkward silence. Joe's father came to their rescue. "Joe, let him in. You've been on edge all evening. He's finally here." Then to the captain, "Please, excuse my son. He's having a moment. Come in, please. We've been waiting for you. Can I get you anything to eat?" The captain walked in. Joe noticed he was wearing the same ancient flight suit they saw him in yesterday, and it looked as if he hadn't shaved. He carried a small cube, and that was all. "Yes, thank you. I haven't eaten since this morning, actually, and I'm starved." Joe's father brought the captain over to the table in the common room, where the captain fixed a plate and Joe's father poured him a drink. Then they sat and the captain ate. Joe's dad handled the introductions for Lan's father and the lawyer. Between mouthfuls, Captain Oliver explained why he had been so busy. "I've had my ship." Here he held up the cube, write up the documents. "I had to create 2 trusts, one for Lan, one for Joe, with your respective parents as co-trustees with me. I then used the trusts, along with my own business, to create a Luna-based corporation and file indefinite salvage claims for whatever is at the location we received. He paused, took a few more bites. I also had partnership agreements made up that essentially splits any profits from the trip 3 ways between the trusts and myself. Once the documents are formalized with the trustees' thumbprints, my ship will file them with the appropriate authorities, and they'll be legally binding. Getting all that done took a bit of doing. Not in the least because we had to spend so much time finding firms to work with that would sign a non-disclosure agreement with the size penalty we had put in place. The captain paused again to eat some more, and the attorney Lon's father spoke up. I'll have to review those documents before Mr. Belyakov signs, of course. He was professional, but also curious. And as he's already told me what you're going after, you'll have to rely on attorney-client privilege. Indeed, the captain replied. He placed the cube on the floor next to him. Sonny, he said, pointing to the cube by way of introduction, or rather Sundancer's AI, I prefer to call her Sunny, as she's such pleasant company, and we generally use Sundancer for the physical portion of the ship. The cube is simply a means to provide a remote interface with her. Good evening, everyone, a voice from the cube said. Sonny, please send all the related documents to Mr. Williams' pad. At these words, the top of the cube lit up, and a face appeared above the cube. It appeared almost unfinished. Vaguely female, but lacking details, it turned and looked at the captain. Certainly. Then looked at the lawyer, Mr. Williams. If you wouldn't mind holding up your pad, sir, the face said. Mr. Williams brought his wrist up to about shoulder height. A few seconds later, the pad chirped, and Mr. Williams regarded it for a moment. I need some time to review these documents, of course, he said. Then a few seconds later, these appear to be rather extensive. Of course, said the captain. As much time as you need. Mr. Williams walked into the kitchen area as he fitted a viewer over his right eye that would allow him to work with the files he'd received. As soon as he was gone, Lan's father asked, So what's the plan for this trip? How long will you be gone? I don't want my daughter to be gone for 10 years or to come back to her father an old man. Yes, Captain, from Joe's mom. We're concerned, too. There's a lot that can go wrong in space. Our children are young, and who'd be responsible for them while they're off running across the galaxy with you? Captain Oliver looked around the room, seeing concern in the adults, justified, he thought, and apprehension for different reasons in the younger faces, which was equally justified. With a deep breath, he explained, Well, to begin with, you realize my ship is almost indestructible? They hull is. Yes, Joe's father said, but the contents can be subject to things that are dangerous or even lethal. Indeed, Captain Oliver answered, high G accelerations from a collision, sufficiently powerful gamma bursts, very large gravity gradients from, say, a black hole, all could result in unfortunate events for the ship's occupants. He paused. Fortunately, we will not be going anywhere near where these events could occur. About half our trip will still be inside the system, which is well mapped, and will be relatively close to someone throughout that part at least. He studied faces. I assure you, between myself and Sonny, he nodded at the hovering face, we will take excellent care of Joe and Lan. We've transported several thousand colonist families, many with children much younger than them, and haven't lost anyone yet. He smiled. But you can't be with them all the time, Joe's mother said. Surely there will be opportunities for trouble. She paused. They also seem to be rather fond of each other. She finished. Mom! Joe was horrified. His face colored a little. There's no way I'd ever— Ooh, he trailed off. At Joe's mother's question, Lan had turned her face to the floor. The captain noticed her cheeks had colored too. He also saw her glance at Joe when he spoke and the look on her face. Oh, that boy has no idea what he's in for, poor lad, he thought. Ah, I see your concern now. I assure you there is no place on the ship that they can go that the AI can't see into. She monitors all life signs, locations, etc. Besides, there won't be a lot of free time, what with their studies and all." "Wait, what?" From Joe. "Studies?" Lan asked. "Why, yes, of course. Most of the time in transit we'll be just riding along to the destination, and idle hands are the devil's tools. Sunny is an excellent teacher, and we have several areas established as classrooms, especially for colonists. They didn't want their children falling behind either during their months-long transits, and school kept them out from underfoot and out of harm's way in any case. I dare say they may well be ahead of their peers when we return, especially in orbital mechanics and navigation and engineering, or anything their current teachers assign." The two teenagers looked surprised at this turn of events. Apparently they had other ideas about what life aboard ship would be like. At this, the hovering face spoke up. "Yes. I have taught several hundred children of various age groups in all subjects. All have done well in their exams. As for keeping them safe, if I can keep James out of trouble, I can handle anything." There seemed to be a slight smirk on the face with this last statement, but it was hard to tell. "Ah, yes," the captain spoke up. "You see nothing to worry about on that front." "As for how long will it take," he began. "First, we need to go to one of the Lagrange stations to pick up supplies for the trip. While there, we'll take a directional bearing on the signal. Using those bearings and the set I have from this position, we can triangulate the location of the signal source. If that checks out, we'll head to the shipyards, where we'll load on the parts and a small maintenance crew. If it doesn't check out, we'll return here. None the worse for a little excursion." Lan and Joe's faces showed they hadn't given any thoughts to the fact that there was still a chance of failure, of there being nothing at all to the whole thing. "Parts?" asked Lan's father. "Yes, you see, if there is anything out there, it will just be an empty hull. We'll need to install the bare minimum to get it back to a shipyard where they can complete the outfitting and make her a fully functional ship. Command and communications modes, the AI, some quarters, engines make her airtight, etc. Providing that and the use of my ship represents my investment in the venture. It will very nearly deplete my resources, too. Altogether, the trip should take about 2 months, half of which will be in transit at near light speed. The rest will be working. While we're in transit, communications will be somewhat difficult. Traveling at near light speed means that our signals will be severely red-shifted, and the time dilation means that any message we send, even a short one, will be spread out over time. Possible with specialized equipment, but there's none available here. Once we are on station, we'll be about 9 light days out, but we should be able to exchange some communications, even with that large of a delay. To you all who remain here, it will seem like about 2 months have passed, while to us, it will be just a bit shorter time. Fortunately, we don't have to go very far." He finished up his explanation and looked around the room. While he was talking, Mr. Williams had returned. Lan's father asked him, "How does everything look?" It seems that Captain Oliver was very fair and exceptionally thorough in his preparations. The documentation would stand up in any court having jurisdiction, and ensures that no one party can take advantage of another without serious penalties. He explained, "I think you're quite safe in engaging the contracts as written." To Captain Oliver, he said, "That was an impressive bit of work, sir." I would have expected no less from a full partner in a major firm. The captain looked slightly amused. "Most of the work was Sunny's doing. She's had the best legal training in the system, but they won't let her take the bar exam anywhere. Seems there's bit of problems with AI being lawyers, but she is a licensed paralegal and quite adept. I wanted an airtight legal footing because past history has been highly contentious, to say the least." With that, the captain picked up the cube and asked each of the parents to apply their right thumb to the surface. A blue light indicated acceptance. "Now you two," he said to Joe and Lan. They did the same as their parents. The captain placed his thumb last. The blue light shifted to green. "Now," he said, "you just have to pack some things and come aboard. I'd like to depart as soon as possible, say tomorrow afternoon." When there were no objections, "Excellent! Now let's have some dessert." The next day, Joe and Lan said goodbye to their parents at the airlock. Benny was upset he had to stay home. They hugged one last time, and the door slid shut between them. As the parents walked away, Joe's mother voiced her lingering concerns. "I hope we've done the right thing. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. Even if they find nothing at all, they'll have done and seen things few of us will." "I'm a little envious, actually," Lan's father replied. Joe's mother's misgivings remained unchanged. "I hope so," she said. End part 6.